My name is Dr. K.B. Vijaykumar. I'm an advocate by profession. I practice in the High Court in Bangalore. Of late, I have had a lot of requests from people, youngsters as well as parents of youngsters, who want to know what is the procedures for divorce. Divorce has become a social problem. There are a lot of reasons why people do not have compatibility, and one of the main reasons is that the youngsters do have a lot of money in their hand, and therefore with money comes a little bit of arrogance and one-upmanship. And the female is also employed and she is also getting equally good amount of salary, then the issues really crop up. Very few people have the maturity to deal with wealth. Very few people have the maturity to deal with a partner who is equally powerful, who is equally financially well off. So these are the main reasons, and of course I do not rule out the possibility of the parents giving a push to their sons for various reasons, to go in for divorce or to harass the female or to ensure that the female is in check and does not throw her wealth or a position against the husband. The various reasons, social, familial, and the way people have been brought up, all these factors determine the way you maturely deal with your marriage. They call marriage as an institution. Now, for example, I've been married with my wife for the last 38 years. She's a housewife. I was initially in a bank, and therefore there is a reason for transfers, and I decided that my wife will stay put so that the education of children does not suffer. And the best part is that we didn't check horoscopes when we got married. Now people say check horoscopes, do this, yagna, do this puja for parigar and all that. We did nothing. But we are one of the happiest couples for the last 38 years, and I have no reason to believe I will not be so in the future too. You need to learn to give space to your partner. Each is an individual with different kinds of likes, habits, background, nature of upbringing, and so forth, and that adjustment takes time. But most of the divorces do happen within the first 3 years. That is because of incompatibility and not understanding the situation. Our perception can be different from that of what the law perceives. Now let's just broadly see what are the reasons, or what are the reasons you can give for going in for a divorce. Some of them are common for men and women, but mostly the reasons are favorable to women. Predominantly, since the Indian society has been patriarchal in nature, the makers of the law, the authors of the law, felt that the women species have to be protected, and therefore you cannot grumble and complain that it is loaded in favor of the females. As society changes, law is also changing according to times, and therefore you can probably expect over a period of time that there will be equality in the way the law sees both male and female and the reasons for divorce. Now let's see what is the reason for divorce. But one minute, before I go into that, I would like to tell you, divorce is not going to be easy. It's painful. It's a mystery that may not be able to resolve by itself, and it is also a course of law that you need to necessarily go through, and the process is not going to be easy, not going to be simple, and it's also going to cost you financially as well. Now let me cite some of the cases where divorce has taken place, has not taken place, and so forth. The first and foremost reason some of the parents think is the moment you give a divorce, you get it. You will never get a divorce in a jiffy. Please understand that. I know of cases which have been filed in 1980s where it took 24 years and finally it was an out-of-court settlement. It's a mutual consent divorce. And in another case, it took 8 years despite hardcore evidence on the misbehavior of the wife, and yet it took 8 years, and it cost the groom side, the boy's side, about nearly 15 lakhs of rupees. So my dear friends, never underestimate the cost of a divorce case or a divorce proceedings. It is going to be costing to both, and whether it's worthwhile, especially if you have children, is something that you have to ponder the larger interest of the children, and even to your benefit. Maybe over a period of time things can go right, can be set right with the guidance and counseling from the elders at home. All these things you have to ponder. And I know of a case where, a very recent case, last year it was filed, and the girl has said the boy is having an affair, and he demanded dowry. Both cases are difficult to prove in the court of law. Court of law decides on the basis of evidence that you can give, or not on the basis of your perceptions. Your perceptions can be different from those of the law and the court. And therefore, in this case, the girl accused the boy of having an affair with a female. I'm stressing the word female because one can also have an affair with a male. Today that is also allowed. So what is an affair in the eyes of law is what you have to understand first before you can accuse somebody of this. I saw my husband taking a stroll in the park with a female companion. I saw him taking a female on his bike. I saw him with another woman in the hotel having lunch or breakfast or dinner or whatever. I saw them in a movie theater. These are all perceptions which need not prove an affair. So what really makes an affair according to law? According to law, an affair can be accepted as an affair only when there is a desertion by the husband of the legally wedded wife. Desertion means he leaves the house, he leaves the wife, he goes away for quite some time, say 6 months, 1 year, does not come back, there is no communication, and he is living with another female in another premises. The premises may be the females, or he may rent out a building, whatever. That is desertion. So first is desertion. Second is living with the person whom is supposed to have an affair. And these two strong things, which if you can prove, will then only constitute, according to legal definition, an affair, which then becomes a ground for divorce. And the other normal thing that we come across in the cases of dowry is, he asked me for 8 to 10 lakhs of dowry. Marriage is over. So whatever dowry was given at the time of marriage, that's a different issue. We can always see that it's given as a love and affection for the daughter. But then in this case, 1 year after marriage, you claim that he asked me for 8 to 10 lakhs dowry. Maybe it's true, may not be true, but do you have evidence? Can you prove it without any sense of doubt in the court of law? Now, the instant case that I am mentioning to you, the case was instigated by the wife's mother. And this girl just followed her mother because she lost her father about 20 years ago, and she's been under the shadow of her mother, and therefore she is, mentally very connected, emotionally very connected with her mother. And this female, at the instructions of the mother, filed a divorce petition telling that, only 2 points mind you, he has an affair and he asked for dowry. When I saw this plaint, I was wondering what kind of an advocate is he? How can this be a ground for divorce? So I told this to the girl, and when she asked the advocate, he said, no, later on we'll bring so many other things into play, and then it's okay, it's only for making them accept the plaint. The advocate is not interested in your getting a dowry, he is interested in getting his money. He is in a profession where he is supposed to earn money for the upkeep of his family. So he will look only from that angle. So you cannot be misled by the advocate by telling that, advocate told me so I did it. You are the client, you are the one who is going to file a divorce case, and it is your perception, your views that have to matter. The advocate is there to put it in a cogent manner as required by law, in a format required by law. That's it. But the content should be yours, with dates, with incidents, real incidents, which can be proved when the issue comes up later in the court. Now in this case, the female says, my mother told me to do so. In this case, the girl deserted the husband. And she's not been living with anybody but with her mother. So what happens? The desertion can be proved. So what happens then? You've got a weak case for divorce. You have left the husband and come. So there are various issues that governs the divorce procedures. And most often the other thing is cruelty. He beats me, he hurts children in front of me so that I will be affected. So all these are there. So let's see one by one what are the reasons that could be held as valid in a court of law. That's very, very important for those who want to go for a court case for divorce. Now here we have adultery, one of the reasons. Very valid reason. Like I told you, today the Supreme Court has told that very recently. Today does not mean virtually or factually. It means recently the court has stated that adultery is not a criminal offense. Which means earlier one could have filed a criminal case against the husband when he has an affair with a female. But today you can't do that. But adultery is a valid reason for divorce. Like I told you, there should be desertion from the part of the husband. He should have been staying with the female for quite some time, recognizable by the court, and he should not have cared for the family. Then there is a valid reason for divorce. Now, can adultery be claimed for the female? You can try, but I'm not sure whether there's a law that says that okay, it is applicable to both genders. Again, the question of proof, and I'm sure that the proof in the case against the female will be much easier than that of the man or the husband. What is the next one? Cruelty. Like I said, cruelty can take different forms. Cruelty can be physical beating, physical hurt, and it can also be a mental cruelty, wherein you say, don't go and see your parents. That's cruelty in the eyes of law. And not giving her food is cruelty, and not allowing the children to talk to her or to mix with her, mingle with her is a cruelty. And telling ill about her to others is a mental cruelty. So cruelty assumes different formats. So whatever format you choose to go in for divorce, that should be provable in the court. So that you should be able to raise a suspicion in the minds of the court that yes, it is possible that this man might have hurt her mentally. So cruelty is one of the reasons somebody could go to court. In the case of cruelty, yes, possibly the man also can claim that the wife was beating him or hurting him or is not allowing the children to mingle with him. So this also assumes that this is there. And if the wife says you should not go visit your parents, cruelty. According to law, the son has got a legal responsibility and a duty to take care of the parents, which might mean visiting them. Okay, so prohibiting the wife or the husband from visiting the parents is a form of cruelty. And let's move on to the next one, desertion. What is desertion? The husband or the wife leaves the spouse and moves away and does not return, does not communicate. Then it becomes desertion, and that must be for a considerable length of time. So you can say she has deserted me or he has deserted me, so we are not living as husband and wife, so he is not likely to come back to me, therefore I want a divorce. Yes, that is a valid reason. And what could be the other one? The next reason could be the husband is suffering from communicable disease, incurable form of leprosy. Yes, a very valid reason for divorce, but this is very rarely we come across such situations. Or the husband has got a sexually transmittable disease, a communicable form of sexual disease. Yes, that is again a very valid reason for divorce. Then you have person not heard of for 7 years. According to law, if a person is not being heard of, which should not have been the reason in the normal course, then you have a reason to believe that he is no more, he is presumed to be dead, and therefore you can go in for divorce. And the other thing is that there is a conversion from one faith to another. A Hindu is forced to convert from, say, Hinduism to Christianity or Islam and so forth. Then there is a very valid reason for the particular person who is being forced to be converted to go in for a divorce. Or if they are already converted, then of course, because at the time of marriage, if one has been practicing a different kind of faith and then changes it, then the other person has got a grievance that I would not have married had she been in this kind of a faith or whatever. So the conversion of from one religion to another, one faith to another, is a very valid reason for divorce. And another strange but not true, renunciation of family life. Renunciation of family life. Suddenly somebody wants to become a Sadguru. He goes to Himalayas, comes back with the long beard and says, Magale, my dear daughter, God bless you, or I bless you. Wife becomes a daughter. So therefore, these kind of reasons we have it, but we are now dwelling on the most important, most frequently adopted reasons for divorce. So adultery is a frequent reason used by people for going for divorce. Cruelty again, dowry again, and there's some more reasons which you could say are valid reasons, but there is a differentiation between genders. So people, please don't shout from the rooftops that this is gender discrimination and therefore not constitutional. No, we must understand that we have been largely a patriarchal family, patriarchal society, and therefore the laws have been made to protect women. Some of the frequently used reasons for male, the husband going for a divorce, is that my wife is not able to conceive. She has got a genetic problem, gynecological problem, because of which she is not able to get a child. That is not a valid reason for divorce. So, husbands whose families are insisting that he marry again because the first wife is not able to give them children, must remind the parents that this is not a valid reason for divorce and you can't do that. So what could be the reason why the court is not considering this as a reason for divorce? In the eyes of law, consummation of marriage is the priority. Not getting a child is not at all a priority, not even a reason. Therefore, when two people marry, consummation of marriage or entering into intercourse or sexual relationships between the two are good, then you don't have a reason to go for divorce because one of them is not able to get a child. So this is as far as the female are concerned. Okay? What about the male? If the male is impotent, you can immediately rush to the court and say, my husband is impotent, I want a divorce. And the court will grant the divorce. So here is where activists have a reason to be on grounds telling that this is discrimination. Yes, it is in the common perception, but in legal perception, as I said earlier, consummation of marriage is what is the reason for divorce. I mean, not consuming the marriage is the reason for divorce, and here the man is impotent, is unable to enter into a sexual relationship with the wife, and therefore the wife has got a reason that and a grounds that she is not able to biologically get fulfilled her needs of sexual requirements, and therefore the husband has failed and is incapable of satisfying her biological needs, and therefore that is a very, very valid reason for divorce. There are finer points in each of this which we will not go now because it depends on case to case basis. And now another question comes in. If you have children, the case becomes complicated, and if the wife is not well off, then the question of compensation, matrimony, alimony, all this comes into play when you file for divorce. I think these further points about alimony, compensation, and are things which we will go at a later date or in another video, because that by itself is a big subject. If I were to tell people going for a divorce is a very difficult proposition, it can be a long-term trauma for the man and the wife. Please don't get instigated by your kith and kin who do not stand to lose anything, but you are the ones who is going to suffer. It's just like telling, I stand on the banks of the river or even the swimming pool, and then tell you, you beat your hands like this, you beat your legs like this, then you keep yourself afloat. If you don't, you are the one who is going to drown, not the person on the banks. So you must understand what is your expectation of life. Life is not the same after divorce, both for the man and the woman, though it may be a little easier for the man. It's going to be too tough for the female because of one, the societal stigma of a divorcee. Even if you are wishful thinking, the society must develop, must mature, it's not going to happen in a jiffy. It's going to take decades and maybe even centuries. Though things are slowly changing. Okay, and then trying to get married again, you are entering into a bigger risk. You do not know what will happen. And if you have children who have been given to your care by the court at the time of divorce, then you have a much more serious problem. So it is all the more necessary to circumspect, to have a free discussion between the man and the woman, wife and the husband, and decide whether it's worthwhile to go for a divorce, or is it not possible for us to reconcile the situation, give and take a little, accept that each of them are two different individuals and each have got their own dislikes and likes, and let us give a space for that. And if both of you are earning, never have the ego that I am earning, you are earning, so who are you to dictate terms? Financial freedom, or that matter, any freedom, comes with a certain amount of responsibility on the person trying to enjoy the freedom. If that responsibility is misused, the freedom is misused, then you land up in trouble. That is generally what happens in the case of a divorce. And in case you have anything to discuss with me, you want any further clarifications, you are welcome to send me a mail or inbox me on this Facebook page, and possibly we can get together and discuss as to how the matter could be taken forward or foreclosed. Thank you, and wish you all a very happy married life.